Hello, hi, Jeffrey Kin, Sarasota Rising Living Arts Festival, Sarasota. I'm actually wearing my t-shirt today, no tie, being kind of casual. I am here with Visit Sarasota and our Behind the Masterpiece, where we get to talk to amazing people in our community on our cultural coast, kind of find out a little something interesting about them and the projects that they're working on. We love the arts in our community, so it makes sense that we have this little podcast. So thanks for joining us. I'm excited about our guest today because I've actually experienced part of what he does. I'm sure this is just a little bit of what he does, but from my perspective, Michael Halflants does this incredible work during the day, but in his spare time, this little thing called 10 by 10, which I'll let him explain. Michael, hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
We are kind of casual, so we're just going to kind of, talk about you, talk about us, talk about the community. I know we actually met originally at State College of Florida, I think, at an event where people put us together and they didn't know where to put the festival person, so they put me with the architects.
That's right.
And that happenstance was great because I got to meet you and then we talked and then you mentioned your 10 by 10. So first of all, let's talk about you and your amazing company. I mean, you're a businessman in town and you do some incredible work. You want to talk just a little bit about, about your mission, about what you like and what you do?
Sure. So we opened in 2006 and we really started with single-family residential work. As you know, 2006 was the best of time, and we had about 3 months of that until the world collapsed. So we ended up doing a number of projects that did not get built. And so my business partner decided that to weather the storm, we would build our own work. And so we started a design build firm, and basically we've done it about 14 times now, where we design a project, and I take on typically the early phases of design, and then at the time he would take the later phases of construction documents and construction, and we would get this series of projects. For the past 8 years now, the company has grown. We're doing what I really enjoy doing as well, which is a lot of multifamily. And so we're doing multifamily projects, throughout the Gulf Coast. And we have offices now in Sarasota, Tampa, and Clearwater. And we're doing a lot of commercial projects also in Clearwater.
So you've expanded in the last few years.
Yeah. The last
nice.
few years have been good. It's a good time to be an architect.
So this is a random question. A lot of people don't think about architecture as art. And obviously it has a big impression on a community and what a community looks like and how it feels. What's your background? Do you have some arts in your past? Because ideas and how things are drawn out. I mean, it takes an artist to do that. So what's your background like?
Yeah, so I guess when I graduated from high school, I came to the States for a month. I ended up with some exchange program. I ended up being able to stay here for a year. And in that year, I love the American system where you could pick, any courses throughout the university in terms of what you were interested in. So I took courses in painting and sculpture and art history, but also courses in sociology, and just throughout the spectrum of different things I was interested in. And at the end of the year, it wasn't really helpful in narrowing down what I wanted to do because I liked everything.
Okay.
So I felt like architecture was bringing a lot of that together, and I started my architectural education in Brussels. And as soon as I started, I really enjoyed it. I'm biased, so I do think that architecture is the mother of all arts. But it's trying to find a the balance between having something that has a use to it and something that has meaning. And so I think the uh, architect from the Renaissance, Alberti, said that beauty for an architect is in the embodiment of an idea, and I very much like that in terms of we seek meaning in the way that we design. And right now, in terms of doing a lot of housing, what is meaningful to me there is only that you think about how people interact with one another, how they meet their neighbors, how do you create a community, and it's just all of the decisions that you make in terms of design, in terms of the entrance and what's the sequences and so forth, allows for that to happen, and I think that it definitely can have an impact
So I
beyond
have a
what it
beef.
looks like.
So I have a beef. Well, number one, there's a little bit of an accent. So I've got to ask you where are you from originally?
So I'm from Belgium. My first language is French. I lived in London as a young child, and for 5 years, and then we moved back to Belgium. So I studied on the French border, and then for architecture school, I was in Brussels. But yeah, my first language is French. I had English early on, but then learned Dutch in school. So the accent is kind of a mix.
It's you know what? It's endearing. I love accents. It always kind of tells you a little bit something about that kid from the past. So what qualities? So your organization has been growing, and so now obviously you have employees.
Yep.
What qualities do you look for in the people that you surround yourself with?
That's a great question. So, and also the firm has some complexity to it because we do design build. So, there are some who are more comfortable and have also a design acumen that they really want to be in the early phases of design. And then, some that who really like to figure things out, figure out the details. How do you make this work? And there's a lot of design in that also, and taking a concept, but like how do you put it together? And that's I can certainly see somebody looking at that saying that's really the exciting part of the profession. And then we also have some who really love the construction and being on site. And so what we have is a architecture-led design build. So it's not led by contractors, led by designers. And so we have, people with architecture degrees who are on the job sites. And so the design, kind of follows us along throughout. We're still a fairly small firm. There's 15 of us, which, you can do still quite a bit with a group of 15. But what I like about architecture in general is that I think there's an idea that an architect just designs something on his or her own, but it's really a collaborative, a collaborative practice, and it's a lot of fun. I've been teaching for 20 years, so a lot of the team members are my former students from years past or some more recent.
Interesting.
And so, I've followed them in studio where, we had conversation and they were leading on the project that they were working on. And then now in the practice, I have a very good sense of what their abilities are. And, it's like I guess it's a little bit like a jazz improvisation where, you set up a tune and then somebody else picks it up and somebody else picks it up. And then, if you can really make it as a conversation, where, we use design tools that are pretty flexible to allow for, somebody to add their own voice to it, it can be, it can turn out to be a really beautiful project.
It's interesting. You don't think about architecture as collaborative, but if you start thinking about all the different levels and layers and how it works and how to make things work, and then that's not even including the consumer. Here's my weird. I have a weird architecture thing. Whatever happened to front porches? Like I. There's a part of me that just misses that, and I think it says something about society. But it was about 3 years ago. I was scrolling online, and somebody was showing their brand new houses, and literally, I could not find the front door, and I thought to myself, so this really says something about number one about the consumer that I don't want anyone coming to my front door, or I would make it more, you know. So how has the universe changed in the years that you've been designing from people's perspectives? You know, back in the day, big front porch, big door, hi, welcome to my home, and then now it seems like it's like, please stay away. I want a big place for my car. So things have
That is
changed.
a very good question. So I teach a course typically over the summer called Tropical Design, where I ask students to design a house on a barrier island on a very tight site, not a waterfront lots, but and you know, a lot of discussions have to do with how do you enter, and the fact that now, you know, you have two cars and you have to find a way to get access for those two cars, but also, you know, have the pedestrian entrance be really the accent and really the feature that welcomes you in. It's a tricky thing to do, especially if your lot is not particularly large. Where, you know, if you have a very large lot, you can, you know, turn the garage and so forth and still have a front door. But, you know, if the two of them are competing with one another for the same frontage, how do you still give the hierarchy so that the front door is like, you know, what's inviting you in as opposed to your garage door? It's a tricky thing. One thing that I'm kind of proud of is that I was the chair of the planning board for 2024, and that's one of the rules that I added in the zoning code for the city of Sarasota, that you could build a front porch in your front yard. Before, if you wanted to build a front porch, you'd have to push the house back behind the front setback. Now you can build a front porch in front of the front setback. And somehow we still had pushback even on the planning board with people thinking, well, it just makes the house bigger. Actually, it makes the house smaller because you're breaking down the scale and you're just making it more inviting. You're just making a pretty transparent piece. Actually, just spend the Christmas break designing a house, and I use that rule to allow me to put a front porch. You know, and it's like, it's not really the developer's fault that there's no front porch if the front porch is not, it's something that would have to be deducted from what you can build. You know what I mean?
Right. Or whether the
But
person would even spend time on it or utilize it. Gosh, I had no idea my question was going to be so perfect for you.
yeah, no, that was really timely.
Seriously, that was a mistake. I'm not that bright. So you obviously you do other things then also because of the planning board, and then our relationship kind of grew out of this fact that you like to invite strangers into this particular situation. You give them really strict rules about what they can do and how much time they have, and then you just kind of let it rip. So, and of course, I'm talking about the 10 by 10, which you're kind of famous for as the producer. Where did this idea of bringing people together and giving them what? It's 30 seconds a picture, right?
30 seconds a picture, right?
One person, 10
Mhm.
pictures, you have 30 seconds, go. So where did that come from?
Um, a friend of mine who's an architect in Portland was doing a similar event, and there's different types now. There's Pichette, which I think actually the 10 by 10 predates Pichette. But it's just using the technologies that we have in terms of just PowerPoints and projection and so forth. But to me, it's like you invite somebody to have 10 images, 30 seconds each. So they have basically 5 minutes to make their pitch, which is a really difficult thing to do. And one quote that I've mentioned at the 10 by 10 is by Winston Churchill, who wrote this really long letter to a friend. And then he starts the letter saying, "Sorry for the length of the letter. I did not have the time to write a short one." Um, and I think that's great because it is
It's
difficult.
brilliant.
Yeah, it is difficult to really condense something and trying to have your message in a short amount of time. And for me, it's like part of the interest is a big part of the interest is how somebody delivers. How somebody can connect within 5 minutes. And I've had some amazing speakers who had the audience in tears after 5 minutes. Some that had the audience in laughter and so forth, and some who bring a sense of wonder in 5 minutes. And then you go from speaker to speaker. As soon as one speaker is done, we have a very short introduction for the next one. The next one comes on. And for a few years now, I've invited the painter Tim Yeager to invite speakers together with me. And, we're both in the visual arts, but we have a lot of interests and we find people to be neat. So we tend to invite a wide range of speakers, architects and painters included, but, many others. So, and
I
the
guess
next
I was
one.
part of the many others. and the other people and the loud people.
Well, frankly, the ones who have a background in performance often obviously perform the best. And sometimes the visual artist, the work, is excellent and speaks for itself. And we're careful about who we invite. But they're not necessarily the most gifted presenters, So, I mean, it just depends. Some of them are for sure.
I was completely freaked out, of course. And the
It's-
anal retentive Jeffrey, who has to be like, have everything perfect. Literally, I, worked for weeks on what those 10 images would be. And if you start thinking about 10 images that kind of, like share your life, if you had this as an exercise, it's a great exercise.
It's a tough exercise.
And then adding in, I have 28, 27 seconds to talk about that image. So, of course, I had it all timed out. I had rehearsed it. And then literally, as I was sitting there, I don't know whether you remember, I had my sheets and the picture would pop up and I had 27 seconds. And I read my 27 seconds. And when that was over, I went on to the next one and I went on to the next one. And I was exhausted and exhilarated. And you do. I think that the audience goes on this, number one, who the hell is this person? And then why does this picture of, the Scrabble board, what does the picture of a Scrabble board have to do with Jeffrey Kinn? And it was just the fact that my friend Tula, had played with me for years and years, had just passed away. And I used that because, of course, when you play Words with Friends, one of the things that said was when Tula won the game. And when I was thinking about my presentation, I felt like she lived her life. She did great things. And, and then Tula won the game. So I finally felt like I had this opportunity to take an image, share it with strangers, and then explain to them why that image was important to me in 25 seconds. That is a challenge. And of course, I'm with a group of people who all do it differently. And I'll never forget Ian Black because I'm like stressed and, all focused and, I have my glasses on and I'm my clipboard and, and then Ian Webb is up there. And he's not Ian Webb, Ian Black. Yeah, mm-hmm. Ian Black is up there and drinking a beer. And then he like literally looks around and goes, "Oh, that picture. Oh yeah, that's Panama. Drink. I mean, I was like, number one, you fall in love with them because these people, everyone's so different, but everyone was completely different the way they approached their time. And of course, him standing there drinking a beer, juxtaposed against me, like Mr. Anal Retentive and having to have every word perfect and everything, it was just a great dichotomy. Okay, so enough about me. Have you ever been disappointed in somebody that you invited for your 10 by 10? Has something ever kind of gone wrong that you're like, well, that was a waste of 5 minutes?
So
You
one
don't have to
time,
use names.
no, I'm going to use a name, but it's not negative. It's not negative.
Okay.
So one time somebody recommended, this was years ago, because I've invited him a few times since, um, recommended this gentleman called John McCarthy. And I didn't know anything about him. So, but, I knew the person who had recommended him, and I knew I very, very much liked her own presentation. And I liked, the way she thought and so forth. So I invited him without knowing anything about him. And he sends me these pictures, and it's 10 images of Barbie dolls in different doll houses. And I look at it like, my God, I don't think he realizes what this event is about. So, and I thought, well, it's only 5 minutes. So, I'm not going to say, listen, this is not going to work out. And, like always the case, you receive the images, 2 days before.
Right.
So, but then the way that he delivered, he is such a gifted presenter that, he's one of the most gifted orators that I know. And so, the delivery and everything was absolutely worth it. It was one of the highlights. So I think that guy could talk about anything. And these were different doll houses that he had built. And then he put stories behind all of it, and it ended up being absolutely great.
That is awesome. So, Michael, obviously we love the 10 by 10s. When is the next one? And how excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10 for your 10 by 10?
So the next one is not this Thursday, but the next, which I believe is January 23rd. And 5:30 p.m. It's at the Sarasota Art Museum at SAM. There's a very nice room in the back, actually works great for it. What we do is that for the first half hour, we get a drink, we mingle a little bit, and then the speakers start at 6. So, because it's 10 speakers, 5 minutes each, and a short presentation between, it takes, the event itself takes an hour. It's pretty dynamic, it's very informal, and, it's a very supportive crowd. And we have about 250 people who attend.
Wow.
Before
That's a good audience.
Before COVID, we were at 300, 350. But it has kind of stabilized since after COVID at around 225 or so. But it's a good group.
It's always kind of eclectic and and fun, obviously. I mean, I've enjoyed being in it. I've actually enjoyed watching it as well. How often do you do them? And if someone is interested in being a part of that insanity, how do they get a hold of you? Is there a website? Is there a social page? What have you got?
Yeah, so they can contact me directly, and if they go to my website, they'll find my email address there, and just give me a little introduction of who they are and what they do and what their interests are. And we're always, or if somebody has somebody that they recommend, always take recommendations for sure. For us, it's like, we come across someone, like I came across you, and say, oh, this guy has something to tell, has a story to tell, and then I invite people like that. The next one, we'll have our first improv specialist who's going to be presenting. We have somebody who had presented in the past, Kaz Cozy, who he looks for shipwrecks and a treasure hunter, basically, and a very good presenter. And this time he's going to talk about something completely different, which is dog training. I mean, that guy could also, is like a John McCarthy, he could talk about anything and would captivate the audience. So,
right.
To me, it's like, in my world, in architecture, I stay within the same circle. So I have, the engineers we work with, the landscape architects, we have our circle of clients, I have my team, obviously. And so it's very refreshing to kind of go outside of your circle and and take a look at, how somebody else is building a life completely separate from what you're doing, and being able to, understand that a little bit and relate to that a little bit. I like the quote by Voltaire, that you should cultivate your garden. And so, it's not about, we can all run the world, but we have kind of a patch of land, around, that we can cultivate. And it's interesting to see how people cultivate their lives differently, entirely differently from your own, but give meaning to it. So, and of course, after 5 minutes, it might, spark the interest from one audience member who then has a conversation with one of the presenters, and it creates more connections and so forth. And we need more of that.
We sure do. Absolutely. We need to listen more and learn from others. And, and it's, Michael, this is always the case. I start talking to somebody like you, and literally there's just not enough time to do and talk about all the things. So my last question for you, have you done a 10 by 10 and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, I've done 2 or 3 of them. And I also asked Tim to do one every once in a while, and it just feels like, if we're going to subject somebody to it, we should do it ourselves as well, every once in a while.
Right.
I tend to enjoy it because I present things that I'm interested in, and I teach also, so I'm a little bit more used to standing in front of a group than I was before teaching, I guess. So, I like talking about our work, but for me personally, the 10 by 10 is also about, I'm interested in you. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And, I think that we might tend too often to just, I want to talk about, my recent project and so forth. It's nice to just sit back and just listen. And I think that's what the 10 by 10 is about. It's just about, keeping your ears open to what others are doing.
Wow. That you are so profound. I wish I were able to verbalize quite as well as you do. I mean, hello, dropping Voltaire on me. I mean, that's crazy. Michael, thank you so much for this time. What an exciting, architecture, who would have thought that you would lead such an exciting life? But between that, the work that you're doing, your employees, and then, of course, this 10 by 10. So make sure you reach out to Michael if you're interested in this idea of attending. Number one, you should attend. And then, wow, if you're really insane, put your name in to see whether it's something that might speak to you about, coming up with 10 images. And you have 30 seconds to discuss. Wow, that's incredible. Thanks for
300
your time.
seconds.
Thanks for your time, Michael. Appreciate you so much.
Our pleasure, Jeffrey.
So this has been Behind the Masterpiece. We love our friends at Visit Sarasota and being able to talk to our arts practitioners. And yes, architecture is a part of the arts. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks so much. And we'll talk to you later. Be well. Thanks for being in our audience. I'm Jeffrey Kinn, Sarasota Rising Living Arts Festival. If you'd like more information about the incredible work that Visit Sarasota does, please visit them at visitsarasota.com. Thanks so much for being a part of our audience.